Okay, you let me know when we're good.
Should be good.
We good? Are we good?
I think so.
We're golden. All right. Heart.
Yep.
Back again for another one. For another deep, meaningful, impactful discussion. Critical Technocolor. I'm Zach.
I'm Hart.
And we are talking about not a new movie. This movie came out. Technically, this movie came out in 2023, but I think it got released here in 2004.
It's recent.
24. So it's recent. This year, I would say. Anyway, La Chimera. Chimera. I think it's Chimera.
Chimera, I guess. I don't know.
Yes, The Impossible Dream. It's a 2023. See, it says 2023 here in the description. So, but it's a period comedy drama. It's totally Italian. It's an Italian movie. And it stars Josh O'Connor. So who's having a big year. He was in Challengers. That's what you probably know him from. But he's also in some other movie. He's in some movie coming out about a woman photographer in wartime or something.
Oh, I think I saw the trailer for that.
I'm blanking on the name, but I
don't remember.
Saw him in it, but yeah, this was a big winner. It was really popular at the Cannes Film Festival last year, and some people would say it's one of the best movies of 2023. But one of those people wouldn't be you.
No, I did see a lot of, I don't know, there seems to be a lot of love for this film. It's got a lot of high reviews. I've seen a lot of positive reviews. I even read a couple of interviews, and they were mentioning I don't know, how there was what was it, devotees of the director's work include Greta Gerwig and Bong Joon-ho and Martin Scorsese, Sofia Coppola. And it was
yeah,
I don't know.
She can cook. The director, by the way, is Alice. I'm gonna mess this name up. Alice Washer. I want to say Washer. Italian director, editor, and screenwriter. But yeah. So all right, Hart. What is La Chimera about?
Well, I mean,
your words.
For me, it really is. It's a guy. He comes back to town from.
What?
He's been away. I mean, it seems to indicate that he's been in prison, but I don't know. For me, the whole movie is just him kind of sadly moping from scene to scene while lots of other things happen, and then he dies.
So, right, La Chimera, Josh O'Connor plays this an Englishman who has served time in prison and is just recently released, and he's heading back to this small town in Italy where he has so we learned that his wife is dead.
Yeah, it's his wife or his girlfriend. He has a lost love. She's dead. Technically, it's not really revealed until later in the film. They just say she's missing or whatever. But
right.
But I don't know. It has that opening scene where he's I guess remembering her. But the way the film started with her, she's the sun, it's following us, and it was just oh no, I know how this is gonna go.
Well, what do you mean by that?
It has that kind of I don't want to say the movie feels pretentious, because I don't think it does, but I think a lot of the stuff around the movie that I've read feels pretentious, which
this is crazy for you to say.
It is. It feels, I don't know, it's just something about that line where it was just okay, this movie is, in the end, not a lot is gonna make that much sense, I guess, with the main team here.
You're the person, you're always trying to get you're always name dropping these Russian film directors and oh yeah, Tarkovsky.
Oh, I love Tarkovsky.
Oh, I love Tarkovsky. Oh. And you're gonna say just a line about the sun's following us is too pretentious?
Yeah, I don't know. There's just something about it and the way it really doesn't go anywhere. I don't know. Maybe it does. I guess we'll find out as we go along here. But I don't know.
Okay. So it starts out. Josh O'Connor's character, his name's Arthur. He's heading back into Italy, and he's sort of I mean, he speaks Italian. He speaks very. Josh O'Connor actually does not. I think he speaks English all of like 2 times in this. At
He
least.
speaks it a few times, but mostly it's like really under his breath. He kind of like you
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
hardly understand. I had to have the subtitles to hear what he was actually saying in English half the time because they'll
yeah.
switch and I'll be like, "What do you say?"
Well, I also had the subtitles on because they were speaking in Italian.
Yeah.
But he's disaffected and obviously reeling over whatever time he spent in prison, plus the loss of his girlfriend. But it's interesting you say that because you're that's kind of I'm jumping around, so forgive me. But like what you said before about missing, that the movie doesn't tell you she's dead, though it's very clear that she is dead,
Yeah,
right?
it's like pretty much the synopsis of the movie says she's like a missing love or something, but the movie,
Right.
I don't know that you even really acknowledge it until later.
Right. And the mother, so Arthur is heading to this town in Italy, partly to find like this stuff. He has like this rundown shack and all these like artifacts.
I do like the rundown
of
shack.
his.
And I will say
Yeah.
that the beginning of the film where he's on the train, like he's just kind of, he wakes up from his dream and there's like some guy walking around like selling like fresh socks to people and random shit for travelers. Yeah. And I do like the kind of character building where you get like, oh, this guy over here, he fucking stinks. He needs some socks. just harassing this guy.
And that was also the first cue that this was a period piece when he came in, like the guy came in with a fucking cigarette in his mouth. I was like, for a second it stopped me. I was like, do they smoke in trains in Italy? And I was like, oh wait, this is supposed to be set place in like the 80s or something, which is, all of that makes sense because just this whole sort of like restoration period in Italy in the 80s anyway. There's a lot of, I feel like Chimera has a lot of background information. It doesn't tell you. It just kind of exists in.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of just history.
Not even just like the artifacts they're pulling up, but just the state of Italy at that time in the 80s. But yeah, so he comes back and he goes to this woman, this older woman, played by Isabella Rossellini.
Yep.
And she is the mother of the woman, his girlfriend or his wife. I'm gonna call her lover. Lover's better. And so she's like the mother of his lover, and she is existing in this like increasingly like decrepit mansion, huge house.
It's just a huge estate falling apart. There's fucking water leaking through the roof, things crumbling.
Yeah, and she still has enough to like have help. She like has this woman who's staying with her that she's like teaching how to sing. The woman doesn't know how to sing. But yeah, so like I think my point is that like what you said about missing is that no one wants to tell her that her daughter is not missing. Her daughter is gone.
Yeah.
And I think that Arthur is grieving.
Mm-hmm.
And Arthur, I think he goes to the mother because the mother's not going to be the person to tell him that she's dead.
Yeah, they can both live in their delusion of wanting to find her.
Exactly. And that's
as both of their lives crumble around them in their shacked houses.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And it's a thing about, I think the whole movie has this like aura of, grief, but also like, what do you do after grief? It's like some people sit in it.
Yeah.
Right. And they rot away and some people move on. And then, there's like the idea of like, I guess like older things like artifacts and stuff like that. Like, do you let them go? Are they yours when you die? Are they, do they pass on to someone else? Is it your right to sell them or even like look at them,
I mean, the main element of the film, the big plot point it seems to be, is really the idea. I mean, basically what he does is he has a sense for finding artifacts, old treasures buried in the ground, and he just got a sickness.
I'm jumping around, but yes, the crux of the movie is Arthur is a grave robber.
Yeah.
And he comes back to town. He has this merry group of vagrants, basically.
Yeah, they're definitely vagrants.
They grave rob, and he has like a sixth sense. He's basically like a mine sweeper, right? Like a mine detector
Well,
for
he's got to
like,
use as a divining rod to do it,
yeah,
and I don't know that he doesn't seem to need that. So I don't know if that's just for show, because he can seem to do it without a divining rod, but he does
yeah.
use a divining rod.
I like that. So this is where it kicks in for me. I think this is why I really liked it, is because it's like a magical fantasy sort of thing. Like, um, the movie, the movie is slow, and the main character Arthur, he's like despondent, and he's like sort of like he doesn't want to open up to anybody. He's clearly in grieving, but like there's this fantasy of it. It's almost like when I really like that they play into these local traditions. It's not like Italian traditions in like a bigger sense of like Italy does this. It's just really like small town customs that give this movie like a whimsical feeling at times. I don't know.
The
Like
real
the first.
question is, did you research the witch carnival? Because what was going on there?
No, I was just about to say that. Yeah, so they get into drag and they have this festival through the town and stuff like that. I didn't really know what was going on.
At first, I thought like maybe are his friends like drag queens? Is that what's happened? But no, it's just like a festival thing.
Yeah. It's just a custom. Again, it's like a custom of a small town. It's not a custom of Italy. It's a local custom.
Yeah, the old witch ladies are gonna get you, I guess, was what I took out of it.
Yeah, and but I liked all that. That gave the magical fantasy some foundation.
It was definitely
like,
it was an interesting scene, and we actually get to see our main character smile during some of that.
yeah, and maybe it's reminded. I guess we know nothing about his.
Nothing.
I mean, and maybe she was a witch, like maybe she was a local witch or something like that. And we see her occasionally. She's there's always this red thread when they cut back to the lover.
Yeah, she's got like a woven dress, and every time he remembers her, she's got like this thread, and it's like caught on leaves. It's just trailing.
Yeah. Like what I've heard, I've seen this in movies before, and I've know something about like a red thread of destiny or something like that. I think it's I want to say it's an Asian myth or something. I've seen it in anime. Anime loves that a lot.
Yeah,
in like Japanese movies.
I don't know what their specific meaning they're going for, but it definitely, I mean, I read it as like, it's like a thread that connects them, basically.
Yeah, right. No, and that's what the story is like. I mean, off the top of my head, that movie Your Name is that. It's like the two characters are connected at that red thread of destiny. So like no matter where they go, they're always like fine. They're like connected in that way. And it's like they're like true love or something. And so in this case, the red thread sort of exists between worlds. Like if we, I mean, all for all intents and purposes, she's dead, right?
Yeah.
So she's in another world, and the main character Arthur has this connection to the underworld or to dead, like dead things, I guess.
He's connected to the past of all these dead societies that he's just robbing, basically. Yes.
Yeah, and that's I like that. So they grave rob particularly Etruscan ruins. And that's why I was before this, I was like I didn't know anything about Italy in the 80s. I didn't know anything about Etruscan civilization. So I felt like I had to do some homework afterwards.
There's definitely a little bit involved that I definitely did not know about.
Yeah. Yeah, they're grave robbing, and they're pulling stuff from the civilization that no longer exists, but existed there 100 years ago.
And specifically made all these artifacts to bury with their dead, to be buried and never seen.
Yes, exactly. And that's the whole moral play in the movie is like Arthur and his vagrant friends are super excited to see him because they know they're going to make money with him.
Yeah, they do seem to be, I don't know, they're definitely using him, but how close are they as friends? They seem to be very attached to the fact that he can make them money.
Yes, yeah. And he's an outsider. And that's the thing that like, he's British. I mean, Josh O'Connor is actually British.
Yeah.
And Arthur is British. He's an English man who is, fell in love with an Italian woman. So he's an outsider to town though. And that's why like I never really felt like they were his friends, even though they kind of like they welcomed him. They were excited to be around him and stuff like that. But I think, yeah, as you said, they're excited for him to make them money.
Yeah. It seems like mostly his family is the mother of his lost love, and their relationship is pretty basic. So he doesn't get out much.
I think he almost for her, because she doesn't really accept that her daughter is dead or gone. And also she gives him a lot of her dead husband's stuff.
Yeah.
So it's almost like she's like keeping the husband alive through him. And that's you see this already. If you're listening, like there's a theme of like things that from the past and how people hold on to those things. I mean, she lives in this decrepit and house that's falling apart, and like she holds on to all her dead husband's things and all her dead daughter's things, and she doesn't want to quite admit that they are gone, or the memory of them still exists in these things.
Yeah.
Arthur and the vagrants, they're pulling these artifacts that aren't meant to be seen, that are meant to pass on with in these tombs, of the dead, and he's taking them and he's selling them. They're selling them for money.
Which he doesn't seem to really care about the money. I don't know what he's doing with the money. He lives in a shack. He's covered in dirt, and he only wears one suit.
Oh, right. And the suit, I like the suit. The suit,
I do like it's like a a nice stylish white suit, but it's got like the flare bell bottoms at the bottom, just so you know kind of the period.
And it's white, which is interesting.
Yeah,
because
that way it gets dirtier and dirtier.
Yeah, but Arthur's a ghost.
Yeah, I guess technically,
he's a ghost. He's basically dead inside.
Yeah, I mean that's why I say he mopes around from seeds, but that's kind of what he does. He just kind of walks in and goes,
Yeah, and he's like really sick at the start.
Yeah, he's too, like coughing and fucking smoking while coughing, and he's pretty bad at the beginning of the movie. He gets a little better.
People in the 80s, that's how they treated every. They're like light a cigarette.
I'm gonna clear it right out.
But also, there's a woman who's like the mother's assistant / student.
Yeah, she's her music student. She's teaching her to sing, but in exchange, I guess, because she doesn't have money, she's just basically her maid and is caring for her and her house.
Yeah. Yeah, and she's important because yes, and that's the thing. She's actually very bad at her job.
She's I don't know, ditzy, I guess. She's a free spirit.
I guess. I mean, she's a single mom.
She's weird. She is a single mom, and we don't get any details about that, but she's got nowhere to live, and she's got her kids hiding in this woman's house while she's caring for her to get singing lessons where she has no... But who is this woman, and what is going on? Like, how is she feeding those kids?
I think she's just doing what needs to be done to keep herself afloat. And if she has to be a student to, I guess, live in this person's house.
Which is how I kind of assumed, because otherwise, what the fuck?
I know. And yeah, so we don't really know much about her backstory, and it is revealed that she's high. Which is kind of crazy. I thought that the fact that you even have like a baby, like it was like a baby. Yeah, how do you hide a baby?
Well, there's a scene where Arthur comes to town and the woman's daughters, I guess, she's got like fucking a dozen daughters, and they're all there visiting, and one of them mentions like, "Do you hear a baby crying?" And everyone's like, "Nah, it's a goat." I don't.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but like, she kind of also represents the sort of like other to Arthur, like, oh, this is a person that you can move on. It feels like that anyway, right? Yeah. So I like her though. I know she's a free spirit, and like obviously like she kind of like starts to bond with Arthur. I think they do like the hand signs and stuff.
Yeah, that's definitely so, because they like, okay, she's like, I'll teach you Italian or whatever, and basically she's teaching him like all these hand signals that there's like a weird like 80s montage, which I kind of like that, but where they're like doing different things, but I don't know. It does come back up later in the movie where they have kind of like an intimate moment, and instead of speaking, they just speak with the hand signals, which I
Yeah,
thought that was pretty nice. It's a little cheesy, but like,
I liked
it was a
it.
nice
Yeah.
connection to earlier.
Also, it's interesting that she corrects his Italian.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I thought like she recognizes him as an outsider. Isn't well. She doesn't want to use him like the other guys.
Yeah, she's mostly, it just seems like she just becomes infatuated with him for whatever particular reason.
He's a
And
good looking guy. He's
yeah,
got a nice.
just like he's cute, and then she just starts wanting to be around him.
Yeah, and I mean, like it seems like he does too. Like he starts to open up later on. Once also, I just wanted when you said the montage of that had like have an 80s on. They have a few montages.
There's a couple. There's some weird like I wasn't a huge fan of they got like the Benny Hill sequence where they're like running from the
Yeah.
cops, and I just wanted to think like da, 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 da.
Yeah, but I felt like that added to the magical realism. How it feels. Like she would speed up. The director sped up the footage. Right?
Yeah,
And, like,
it has that old timey real footage.
yeah, and like so they were like moving around Benny Hill style, or they would play with the camera when he was like detecting something. Like they would flip the camera upside down when he was like I guess finding a ruin or something like.
It was interesting where he would get sick and the camera would like kind of just flip over, and he'd kind of collapse the ground as the camera is like spinning upside down. You get like this inverted look in his connection to the ground, which apparently I was reading some interview and they were talking about like the poster, which is based on tarot card, the Hanging Man,
Yes.
which it's apparently she came up with that after the movie was already finished filming, so there wasn't like a direct connection at the time. It just, I guess, happened that way.
Wow.
Which I thought was weird because they're very directly connected.
Yeah. Well, I mean, oh, that's interesting. So, I mean, I guess tarot cards are a thing, but
Yeah, I mean, she was saying like I guess her daughter was playing with them, and then she did some research and looked into them and all the, how they can have all these different meanings and all this other stuff. But she thought the Hanging Man was appropriate, which is, I would say so, because it's usually some sort of like misery caused by yourself, like you're doing it to yourself.
Yeah, and I feel like he lives in that a lot. I mean, he's not particularly happy. He doesn't need the money or want the money.
Yeah, he just seems to do it because it is, again, it's his sickness. He can't stop. He needs it.
Yeah.
It's like a drug addiction almost.
He's living in the past. He's grieving.
Yeah,
he can't move on.
he's dissociating.
The woman. Well, yeah, and the woman, Italia, she starts to pull him out, and they go to a party, or another like small festival type thing.
Oh yeah,
and they go to the water, and they're like, they're having a nice fun night, and they're hanging out with the vagrants, and then suddenly he's like, he's been touched, and he uncovers these ruins that have like a big take, and she's like not okay with that.
Yeah, she's got a real problem with them stealing from the dead. She is morally against it, and she's like, I'm gonna go fucking call the police if you don't stop. Which I will. That scene where they go to the water and they're gonna swim, and I like how they mentioned like not to swim in that because it's fucking polluted, and you can see like all these big like factories and refineries like across the water, and then right next to it they're on like this little beach with all these like 1,000-year-old graves just sitting there under the factories.
Yeah, and that's what I said before, like like Italy in the 80s, and like all of this sort of modernization coming through, and they weren't, and then that's also we discovered they're not the only people who are picking from ruins to sell.
Yeah.
But Italia's like resistance to that grave robbing, and then like has like a moral kind of like she takes a stand, a morally right stand. They'll be like, hey, this isn't for you.
Yeah.
It's not for you, and it's not for you to sell. She's sort of like taken aback by the fact that Arthur even does this. But she's not really against repurposing older things and stuff like that, right?
I guess, yeah, technically.
I mean, I felt like she I mean, she wasn't selling anything, but later on, when she's found out by the woman, the mother, and she leaves, she ends up setting up shop at like this like abandoned bus station.
Yeah, she like they take over the train. Like I guess it is like a
It's
bus
like a
or a
train
train station.
or bus, yeah, and it's been abandoned.
Yeah, which you know, it's she's repurposing this old
It's
dead
a fixer
thing.
upper.
Yeah, I mean, you know, just clean up. No one. She asks, you know, like if you know no one owns it, basically. So if no one owns
Right.
it, then I guess you know anybody can use it.
Right. And so there's like a different stance on like repurposing dead things, I guess, you know.
Which there was when I was reading through a couple of things I came across, there was actually a specific mention of that in this one interview where it mentions that, and then the greedy Tamborelli are men. Were you making a point
The vagrant.
yeah, were you making a point that women in particular are better at appreciating the past? And the answer was yes, but the scenes are also there to explain how we can, all of us, change the destiny of a site, of a place, of our spaces, in that case, an abandoned train station, into something more, to give it a feeling of life, not of death. Not sure nor to use it to make money. So I guess it's like an idea of a more noble use of these things instead of just greed.
I also want to say that particularly the female presence, because the woman who's part of the gang of vagrants also shows up there. So the you know, and everyone who lives there is just women and children.
Yeah, it's just like it's like a halfway home of like abandoned women and their kids just living in this train station, growing fruits. They're like doing fucking lice treatments on the kids. Everybody's having a great time.
However, I mean, there is the one art dealer is a woman, and she's basically evil too. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another thing. So the they find this ruin, and they find this like statue, this beautiful statue, and they behead it.
Yeah, it's a whole like a shrine, like untouched and sealed, not just pots buried in dirt. Like it's all fancy, and there is a big fancy like shrine statue. And that moment, the moment where he's like, the music starts to kick in, and he's like transfixed by this statue, and he's looking into its eyes, and then they just fucking snap its head off. That was the first moment in the movie where I was like, oh man, like that made me feel something. Like that was fucker.
Yeah, and that was someone finally told him like, hey, what you're doing is wrong, or encouraging him, because all that he's gotten so far, like encouragement to do this and to live in the past and sell it for money, and so they get found out, and we think it's the police, but it's actually a rival sort of grave digging operation.
They dressed up like cops to pretend.
I know, that was pretty clever.
Just chase them away, didn't even have to do anything.
They end up taking the statue, but the vagrants at least beheaded it, so they've got the head, and they try to sell the head.
Yeah. So
they like go out to this like private auction in the water, and they basically try to like sell the head so they can get in on whatever that statue sells for. If they complete it, they'll get like a cut into the profit.
Yeah.
There's a great scene. There's two great scenes actually in this. I think you probably know the one I'm going to talk about.
I think I know one of them.
But the scene when they start barking at each other. I love that scene. That's so funny. And again, it's like
it was one of the first like I don't know surrealist moments that kicks in towards the end of the movie where it was just.
The thing. There's so many surreal moments leading up to this, but that one was like very like you know, like Arthur's looking at these people and how they're arguing becomes barking, and they're just like snarling and fighting over who gets to claim the statue, which it's neither of theirs, right? And that's the thing the movie's saying, is that it's not for the thieves, but it's not for the people, the art collectors either.
Yeah.
And then there's another. I think that the other beautiful scene was when Arthur takes the head, and he's I forget what he says. Something about
you basically, I mean, I knew it was coming because they kept building and building, and then they're like, well, you know, show us the head, and so he kind of slowly walks away to unwrap the head, and he takes it out and looks at it, and he's just like, you weren't meant to be seen, you know, basically, and then just like throws it in the water, like fuck everybody. Which I want to point out this woman is quite rich with this like stolen art operation, and she's like literally at the moment selling art to a bunch of high-end buyers on a boat. I don't know why on a
Illegal
boat
art,
or
though. Illegal.
well,
So
she's selling the
that's
illegal
why.
art, but she
That's why.
has forged documents, so it's a legal sale, but she's having it in like this shady like boat in the water. Like I don't know.
Because it's illegal. Because it's illegal. It's,
Yeah, I guess so.
The goods are procured by grave robbers. So there is like this weird like gray area. Like, yes, they can get them like appraised, but the way they got them was through grave robbing, so it's illegal. And I think maybe that's why they.
Well, they have fake documents, so they ask about the documentation. I mean, she's forging stuff. She's selling it legally, it seems, after she's procured it, which is why there's such a problem when they show up on this boat. And she's like, "Why the fuck you bring them here?"
Yeah. This is like money laundering, you know. And they're like, "Oh, it's." You know, it's procured under illegal means and then made legal.
The main point, though, is that with all this money, I'm pretty sure she could just get some divers to go down there and get that head. Like, it's just sitting there.
Most likely, that's what would happen.
Yeah, that's what I would do. Fuck that. I'm not leaving that thing there.
But that was the turning point. I thought that was a beautiful scene.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good scene.
And it pisses off everyone. The art dealer is like, whoa, what? But also, it loses any leverage that the vagrants have over the art collector. So they lose out on all that money that they would possibly maybe get in on. But that also severs. That finally is like the last straw between like Arthur and this group. This is when we realize that they're not really his friends, because when that happens, they all kind of like, again, they push him out. He's like an outsider to them again.
Yeah, they turn on him. There's that scene on the train where he gets up to go smoke a cigarette, and his friend is just fucking staring at him like he hates him more than anyone ever.
Yeah. Oh, I was just gonna say Arthur's an outsider again.
Yeah, he's definitely an outsider, but I do like when he gets up and they kind of rejected him, and he wanders off to get a smoke, and then the movie just like completely like he's off in La La Land, and there's just people from his past like asking. They all are coming up to him like they all have something they've lost, and they're like, I can't find this thing, have you seen it? There's clearly that connection to him stealing people's stuff.
Exactly. They're all stuff that he's taken before, and it's like they were meant to represent like the dead that he's robbed, and they're like, hey, we're looking whatever was in our tombs or graves at the time. And that was again, I love these moments of like that they break away from the realism of the situation and stuff like that. And they don't do it, they do it in a subtle way. It's not like the world blurs or Arthur has to go to sleep to see these like visions, or even you almost don't even know, like you won't even know their visions unless you like actually listen to what they're saying, and you're like, wait, these people aren't there.
Yeah, because I mean he's asking for a light for his cigarette, and then it's not until you really get the camera turned around and it's like, wait a minute, it's the train car guy from earlier.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with the barking scene or right before then too. It's like the switch on the realism like it's like they turn it off for a second, and they let the scene play out in this almost like ridiculous way. And I like that because they don't signal to us, but we just we know that like the otherworldliness of the situation has kicked in, and it does that at the end of the movie. We'll get to that. Also is maybe up for debate on what happens. But I mean, there's a lot of that through the whole movie, and I think that's what I like a lot about it. It reminded me of like like a Gabriel Garcia Marquez book, like the what's the book?
Good question. I have no idea.
No. Oh my god, I'm like blanking on. Sorry, I'm losing my whole street cred on this. Yeah, 100 Years of Solitude. 100 Years of Solitude, which is also like this magical. Yeah, and it's like about a family going through like hundreds of years of just changes and stuff like that. But I was reminded of that book. Here, I just like the kind of like touches of other world they throw in through the whole thing.
Yeah.
For me, that's what made the movie unique, and that's why I really liked it a lot.
I don't know. I mean, it definitely has like a unique element, and it has almost dream-like elements as well.
Yeah.
Which, again, I did not dislike the movie, but I didn't really love it either. I don't know. It's in this middle ground where I appreciate a lot of it. I thought it was beautifully shot. I thought the
Yeah.
acting was great, the costuming, all these elements. But the overall story connection for me was just kind of lacking because there was just not, I don't know, it just didn't have enough going on. I mean, there's a lot of elements that it doesn't tell you, which I'm fine with, but the overall story of what it is, I don't know. It really didn't kick in until like really right towards the very end of the movie. I felt like a lot of the beginning, I don't know, it's just not a lot happening, or it just doesn't really go anywhere.
See, I thought that just from start to finish, the movie was about how we handle the past
Yeah.
and how we handle things, and do we accept it? You know, the mother and Arthur don't accept um the passing of the daughter slash lover. What do we do when if you uncover artifacts from the dead or something like that? Do you leave them there? They're not for you. They're not for human eyes. Do we respect the others, the underworld, or like, wherever people go when they pass, or do we just, we ransack it for money because they don't need it anymore? And if we do find something that's abandoned, do we rebuild it, or
Hmm.
do we resell it? I think that's it. Do we rebuild it, sell it? I think Italy in that time, I think that might be partly why they set the Italy in this time period of the 80s. I feel like they were going through a lot of modernization
Yeah.
in that time. And I mean, the her name is Italia,
Yeah, her name is
Italy.
Italia.
And she repurposes this station for good, like she just gets a bunch of other women and children there, and they have a home
Yeah, they
without
just live there.
any. Yeah. And Arthur sees this. I feel like Arthur is grieving through the whole movie, and I think he finally gets of like, you see, I actually feel like the ending is a little muddled for. There's a moment where they kiss, and it almost feels like Arthur's going to move on, like he could finally move on from.
Yeah, they can be happy. They seem like they could be together and happy, living
Yeah,
there together.
but I think it's kind of beautiful that Arthur Doom character, like he if he were to stay there with her,
Yeah.
he would never really be happy because he would still, like, some people, Arthur's a tragic figure. He could never move on from this person he loved,
Yeah.
even if there's a woman there who's like, I accept you for, who you are and what you are, and I want to move on with you. I think it's tragic because he still gets up and he still ends up um going to do a job for the other grave robbers who we see in who like swindle them. They're the ones who get the statue.
Yeah.
And he ends up showing up to this like construction site, and he uses his power again to find these ruins again. It's not really clear why he does that. I feel like that, like after he's learned all this stuff, he still turns and is like, I'm gonna do this.
Yeah, he chooses to make himself miserable. He is the fool.
Yeah, but that's that's like, it's tragic. I feel like it's a little, he can't move on. He can't move on. Even if there's an out for him, he still turns back on it. And then he collapses. He gets like locked in, like I think like the area kind of collapses on him, and
Yeah.
he gets trapped in like this catacomb. And then he finally like is to pull the red thread, and he finally finds the red thread and connects to his lover again.
Yeah.
I think we think he's dead.
Yeah, I mean, that's my assumption. I mean, he's buried in the ground, he's trapped, and then he finds the red thread sticking through the ground that we saw earlier. Like, her thread is like, it's just stuck in the ground. She can't pull it out. But, like, then he's finally on the underside pulling, and then, it breaks, and then they're together.
Also, you know, he is trapped in the he's literally trapped in the past. I mean, that's why he goes to the job. He's
Yeah.
trapped in the past. He's trapped in his grief. So like it's a sad movie at the end. And I don't know if I can even feel like satisfaction from that ending because like yeah, he was trapped. I think he was the only out for him was at that point was death.
Yeah.
And so it was sad. But like I said, I thought it was a beautiful movie. I thought it was beautifully shot. I thought it like the ideas they were playing with and like the kind of like the whimsy. I want to say it's called the whimsy of the movie when it kicks in was so entertaining.
Yeah, I think it has its elements, but it is slow. I really
It
just
is
feel like
slow.
the first hour, like, it really didn't do much for me until later.
It is slow, and it is also it's which I'm not. I would say you know I'm not gonna let subtitles stop me watching a movie, but you know some people do. You know, I feel like I have to. You know, you have to watch this movie more than once. I think because just to get it all in, and especially it's dealing with a lot of heavy things. Like I said, it requires a little bit of backstory, a little bit of like not subtext, just understanding of like 1980s Italy and
Yeah.
like what they're digging up to like fully appreciate what it's trying to say and what's going on. But I really like this movie. I don't know if it's one of my top. I mean, if we're considering it in 2024, it's definitely in my top 10.
Mm.
I really like this movie. I thought it was beautifully shot. The acting in it. I love the wardrobe. I love how everything looked.
I don't know. It's like I loved most everything, but actually watching it, it was just, I don't know, a little slow. It is interesting though that you brought up Tarkovsky because I'm thinking about it more
Oh,
and
here it
more, and
comes.
there's a lot of connections to Stalker. It's got that same element where that movie opens up and it's the husband slipping out of bed and trying to sneak away from his wife. He's going back to the zone. He just won't fucking give it up, and he's leaving his family behind. And it's that same kind of, you know, industrialization and toxic waters next to people's like lovely beach walks, and there's a lot of connections to it. But again, you've got the, you know, collapse of the Soviet Union and over here with Italy and their thing going on. But so I mean there's definitely some connections there. This one, I don't know, it's definitely dealing with some different elements, of course, but
Yeah.
I don't know, it's a movie that I think I like it more in retrospect, but watching it I was not very engaged by it.
Yeah, I could agree that it was slow. It was definitely a slower. It's like a creeping.
It was
movie.
really
And
hard
yeah,
to get into.
main characters who are like grieving or like despondent in some way. They're kind of hard to attach to.
Yeah.
Even like I mean, last movie we talked about, I saw the TV Glow had to say a similar situation where Justice Smith's character was also despondent and sort of like it's kind of hard. You want him to do something. You want them to take action. And for me, I think that it's the lack of action that is telling of the character.
Yeah.
And that resonates enough with me that I you know I walk away feeling satisfied from it. I don't need every you know because you're the protagonist doesn't mean you're a hero because you need to do X, Y, and Z to like save the day. And like the fact that Arthur in this movie is a doomed man. He's a tragic figure. He's a doomed person who's like stuck in the past, even if he's given an out. I think that's I don't know. That resonated with me. But I can understand how it couldn't you know.
Yeah.
But so would you recommend this?
You know, I don't know. It's a tough one. Because I started watching this movie with my sister, and we had to take a break in the middle. And then when I went to finish it, I asked if she wanted to finish it, and she was like, "Nah, I'm good." So it's like if you were into, I'd say, these type of artsy films, then I think it's not a bad film. It didn't personally connect with me, but I don't know. I don't know that I would go back and rewatch. I might rewatch it, but it's one of those movies that I'd recommend to a certain type of person looking for a certain type of film. But for everyone, probably not. There was actually, I thought, a funny quote when I was reading through all this crap of, it was talking about, all those celebrities. Well, I was reading through the interviews, but they're talking about the celebrities that love these films and all this stuff. And it was, as for the locals, they remain unconvinced. And her quote is, "Oh yes," she says, "unfortunately so. The people I work with locally, they find my films boring. I think I've earned their respect as a person. Hopefully one day I'll earn it as a filmmaker as well." Which, there's just a certain, some people are going to really love this film. And I think some people are just not.
I totally agree. Totally agree. I mean, you can say that about every movie.
Yeah. It doesn't have wide appeal.
I thought it was beautiful nonetheless. And I do, for anyone who saw Challengers and was like, damn, Joshua is pretty cool, pretty hot. I need a little more about him. I think La Chimera is it's a showcase of what he can do as an actor too. And it's a great movie from a female director, which I think is great too. And it's a foreign film. Got three boxes right there for me in my movie watching.
It's going to the Oscars.
So, it's going. I would hope so. I hope so. If it qualifies, I'm. But yeah. So that is La Chimera. I say go see it. Hearts on the other. We never agree. I think the only time we agreed was I saw. Right?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, there's probably a couple films, I'm sure.
I know there are movies we agree on, but the movies we've talked about so far, I feel like we're on one side of the fence and you're on the other.
We just got to stop watching so much like polarizing films. Like Speed Racer.
Oh my God. And that's another. Yeah. Okay. Speed Racer. Justice for Speed. It's you'll learn. You'll get there one day. You'll get there one day. I know you will. You eventually see the Speed Racer, but for now, I recommend La Chimera if you're looking for something that is slow moving, is beautifully shot, and I think it has interesting themes about grief and how people deal with the dead in the past.
Atmospheric and artsy.
Yeah, and pretentious maybe. Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, that's it for us. I think a critical Technocolor, but we'll be back for another movie. Maybe we'll be back with something less pretentious, right? Maybe Deadpool Green is more Heart's cup of tea.
They'd enjoy it.
That's great. They're gonna make us talk about it, and I didn't want to, but just for that, it makes me mad when you say stuff like that. But and I'm most apologetic to Marvel movies. I find that I'm more apologetic to movies than most people now, and I still was like, "You really like that movie?"
It was fun.
And you don't like Speed Racer. That's a fun movie.
Well, here's the difference. Speed Racer made my eyes bleed watching. It's the vision. I can't get past the visuals. They make me nauseous.
Well, I think. Did we ever get an episode of Speed Racer?
I think we recorded it, but I don't know if it was salvageable. I can go through all the files. I got a lot of backlog.
If we gotta do it, we gotta do it again.
I would do it again.
But all right, but that's it for now. Until next time, guys. Talk to you later.
See you.